Hello, it is Tuesday, June 21st, 2021. I'm Chris Remo, and welcome back to the New York Times Crossword Daily Solve. It is a Tuesday puzzle today, so we'll be solving something around the level we did yesterday. Should be relatively straightforward. I do see there are some circled cells in the grid, and if you've seen some of these videos before, perhaps you know that for whatever reason, I really enjoy when there are circled cells in the grid. I think because, I don't know, it suggests we'll be figuring something out beyond just the clues that are in the puzzle, and sort of enjoy anticipating what that might be. Anyway, this circled edition of the Daily Solve has been brought to us by Laura Sexton, Victoria Rajishka, and, as always, the inestimable Hood Monster, the invaluable Timothy Mark, and the inimitable Connor O'Neill. So thank you so much to the 5 of them, benefactors of the Daily Solve Patreon campaign, for their generous support. And thank you to everybody who has backed the Patreon campaign at any level. I do very much appreciate that. You can do so yourself for a few pounds a month or the equivalent in your local currency, and you can get access to all of the bonus videos that have gone up on the channel to date, as well as the new ones that go up each week. And you can subscribe to the channel as well, of course, on YouTube. Thank you to everybody who has done so. Apparently, it does help YouTube determine which videos it will recommend. So you could tell a friend as well. I used to say that more often, and I've forgotten recently. I don't know if anybody does that or if it helps, so I don't mention it as often. But if you think you know somebody who might enjoy this series, why not pass it along to them? Anyway, shall we move on to the puzzle itself? Why don't we? This is, of course, a Tuesday puzzle, as noted, and that means it will be a themed puzzle, which is why I was making a point of observing the circled cells in the grid. It was constructed by Alex Eaton Salners, this is certainly a name I recognize, has constructed several dozen New York Times crosswords in the past, and it was edited, as always, by Will Shortz. So let's start solving. Arid Mongolian expanse would be the Gobi Desert, right? And blank X could be Gen X, Generation X. The Yoko of Oh Yoko, surely Yoko Ono, partner of the late John Lennon. And headgear for Laurel or Hardy, a bowler hat. Laurel and Hardy being the classic film comedy duo. There was a biopic of Laurel and Hardy with Steve Coogan and I can't remember the other actor's name. Really wanted to see it. I never did. It's called Stan and Laurel, I think. Mireille Blank, co-star of AMC's The Killing. Do not know that. Cross my heart. I hope so. H would be a strange fill here. It also is the incorrect number of letters, but you never know. The circled cells could provide a rebus. They could suggest a rebus if we were to say enable our rebus function in order to type more than one letter into the cell. I won't explain what that's about because I don't know if it's relevant yet to the puzzle. So let's wait and see. This is payback. Now we're even, maybe, and then would be spelled out here, but presumably that word would continue on. Manipulate. To ply, as in to kind of an object or a situation. Con, maybe? I don't know. I'm not sure about this either. Bitter blank. Bitter ale, maybe? Bitter, not sure. Jump for joy. Displayed affection from across the room, say. Blew a kiss. That looks reasonably good, although I was going to say this doesn't. FB, but forensics facility at Quantico, Virginia. Well, forensics makes me think of the FBI, so it could be an FBI lab. How about that? And he's got notions. An idealist? An idea guy? It says he, so it could be idea man or idea guy, maybe. Old looks all right. Yale to alums. Old Eli? I know that an Eli is somebody who attended Yale. Is Yale itself also referred to as Old Eli by its attendees? I actually don't know. Some maybe it is. Some jeans are Levi's jeans, manufactured by Levi's jeans, and a small building wing is an annex. Say what? This does look like Now We're Even, doesn't it? Container for recycling is a recycling bin. Yeah, this must be Old Eli. So a small building wing is, why don't I see that? Hold Your Horses is Wait. And city that's home to the Anne Frank house. I actually don't know. Is it Amsterdam? I suppose so. And then, okay, so he's got notions must be an idea man, after all, thanks to Amsterdam. Small building wing. I don't know. Sorry, I apologize if this is very obvious to many of you and you're yelling at me through the screen here. I'm not sure. Stuck together in a way, fused perhaps? So what do we think these letters mean? This presumably spells something here. It could spell venal or what about this? Winning. And this is bitter elm. Is that the name of a plant, perhaps? I don't know. NFL Hall of Famer Dawson. Len or Lev would be possible names with an L. Leo was another. Oh, the bitter end. Right, sorry. Very common phrase. Going to be struggling with this puzzle until the bitter end, it seems, despite being a Tuesday only. Cross my heart. I swear. Yes, there we go. So Mireille or Mirella, Mireille, Enos, Kosar of AMC's The Killing. Okay, so this is Adams. So that's a name, actually. Adams. I wonder whose name it is. Winning is something. And Terry is Mr. Mom. I have not seen the film, but Terry Garr is certainly an actress name. Audibly astonished would be a gasp. There's several words that sort of mean a similar thing here, like a gape, for instance, but a gape is the part that indicates sort of how you look, your mouth hanging open, whereas a gasp is the sound. You're a gasp, even though you could use those words in a similar situation. I see. So if you're winning, you're ahead, which isn't how I feel in this solving this crossword at the moment. Bit of fire pit debris is ash. An undue hurry could be a haste. The thinker and others are statues, the thinker being a Rodin statue. And a German bacteriologist who lent his name to a kind of dish. Well, it must have been Mr. or Dr. or Professor Petri, I suppose. Petri dish. Okay, big drag on a fishing expedition, a trawl. Sort of trawling for fish with a big net. What is this? This looks like ska. Yes, ska punk fusion genre with Jamaican rhythms. And blank drives me crazy. Fine Young Cannibals hit She Drives Me Crazy, presumably. Bull with a horn, informally. A rhino? Are male rhinos called bulls, perhaps? The informally would be indicating that it's been shortened from rhinoceros, if so. If one is having misgivings about something, one is ruining it. Oh. Wait, this looks like Tuesday, doesn't it? Tuesday? Blank 500, NASCAR's Super Bowl. Daytona 500, I've heard of that. Some kind of car race, so it must be a NASCAR race. So I'm sorry, what is this? Adams Tuesday? Rapper on 1988's Straight Outta Compton, Eazy-E. And silence would be Zip It. Sorry, it took me a moment there. Toilette water. So this looks like French. So, eau de toilette would be perfume in French. And so the French spelling of toilette there is cluing us into the fact that the answer is, to the likelihood that the answer is going to be French. Peach or persimmon is a fruit, and of course, because we're only referring to peach or persimmon, it's a singular answer, not a plural answer. So no S at the end. In this case, we already knew that through the crosses, but if you encountered such a clue without knowing that, keep it in mind. Cheese in a Greek salad could be feta cheese. Stuck together in a way, so it could be glued or fused or, I don't know, something else. Spaghetti, e.g., is a pasta. And an emission from a whistling kettle, well, a whistling kettle emits steam because the water has boiled. Driver's guide, for short, could be GPS, global positioning system, or satellite. Muscle worked by a kettlebell swing informally. Is it your lat muscle, maybe? So struck together would be glued. Oh, Venus, sorry. Venus, Adams, Tuesday. Okay, there will be a revealer that will explain this, and I'll feel very silly for not understanding. This is like a only connect sort of wall puzzle or something, if anyone watching is familiar with that show, sort of game show. Shoe insert could be an odor eater. Part of a house that might have a full house. A poker hall? Poker room? So a full house is a poker hand, a particular poker hand. And so I wonder if it means a literal place where poker might be played. I'm not sure, but poker is probably correct. Destination on a fast food lover's bucket list. And there's a question mark indicating a bit of wordplay or punnery here. So KFC, Kentucky Fried Chicken, famously has buckets of chicken as one of its menu items. Exhibiting poor taste. Something could be, you could say, it's very tacky. It's in poor taste. To surmise something is to infer it. I've been unable to surmise or infer the meaning of this puzzle's theme, although I'm very curious about it. Self-description for many an expert hobbyist could be a geek. If one is lacking grace and refinement, one is what? And here we have linger as to tarry, don't linger. Piggy in a nursery rhyme. So the nursery rhyme referring to toes, children's toes as little piggies. And blank house, 1970, Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young hit. Is it Our House? Poker room, part of a house that might have a full house. Oh, gauche. Lacking grace and refinement is gauche. Yes, very gauche. Very tacky. CPR specialists could be EMTs, emergency medical technicians. 1 of 24 could be hours in the day, perhaps. I mean, there might be other things that are in groups of 24, but that looks likely with the crosses. Bolts counterpart, so a nut and a bolt used in repair or DIY kinds of applications. AMA members. I suppose no reason it would have to be DIY. It could be professional handiwork. Anyway, AMA members. American Medical Association doctors. Oh, and here's our instant hinted at 4 times in this puzzle's circled letters. A split second. Ah, so is this Venus? Is Venus the second planet in the solar system? John Adams, the second president? Tuesday, the second day of the week? And beta, the second letter of the Greek alphabet? Wow. Is that what this is? Split second. And of course, they've all been split by the black cells. Sorry, I can barely even think. This actually really is like an Only Connect situation here, actually, in a way. Only Connect is a game show on British television that deals with connections between concepts in what often seem like very tenuous ways, but can be explained very, very concretely once you understand the relationships. It's very, very obscure and obtuse, and this is the kind of thing. There's a bit where they have to sort of pull concepts off of a wall of many words, and this sort of reminds me of that. Anyway, sorry, I'm sort of blathering. Let's move on. In the style of could be Allah's and I don't know, chicken a la king or something like that. Isn't that a dish? Ripped in quotation marks, indicating maybe a sort of slangy term, would be swole, the modern way to refer to being in fine physical form or very bulky. Place to get a cookie, maybe. A website, as we all are reminded all the time these days that we're being given cookies by pop-ups. Actress Bonet, Lisa Bonet. And yearly honor awarded for each NFL position. Oh, no idea. Edmonton athlete, the Edmonton Oilers I've heard of. So Oiler, Edmonton Oiler. Grimm sisters, so Hansel and Gretel, from the fairy tale about breadcrumbs and the witch and all that. Pepper or Friday are sergeants. So Sergeant Pepper from the Beatles album Sergeant Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, and Sergeant Friday from the television program Dragnet. And a bullfighter is a torero. Yearly honor, is it all pro maybe? I'm not sure. It sounds like a thing that you'd have. Here we have Knives Out actress Ana de Armas, yes. Would have known that one if I'd seen it. Desk item that's shaken is a snow globe. And a countess's counterpart is an earl. An earl and a countess are comparable aristocratic titles. Ninja Title, that's that title, it was in my brain. Ninja Turtle Hangout. These must have hung out in the sewers. I don't think I've actually ever seen any of the Ninja Turtle things, but I do think I know that they hang out in the sewer. Fright blank, gag item. Fright wig? Is that a wig you wear to make it look as though your hair is sort of standing up on end, perhaps? I don't think I know that terminology, but that seems likely. A hymn player could be an organ. You could have a church organ playing a hymn. If one is unwise to the ways of the world, one is naive. And Senora Perón, there we go, Eva Perón, of course. And Kylo blank of Star Wars, Kylo Ren of Star Wars. And no. Not quite right. What did I mistake? I'm very sorry about this. I'll have to do my classic run through and just see if anything jumps out at me. Now we're even. That looks right. So it looks okay so far, I think. I never saw this, sorry. Constitutional initiative passed in 1972, but never ratified, the Equal Rights Amendment, ERA. There we go. I guess this is useful to catch some of those crossed answers that I never examined. Split second, yeah. Oh, I spelled Torero incorrectly. I'm sorry. How did I do that? So I was right at the end of the puzzle. I apologize. So Slimo. Okay, well, see, if I would have checked the crosses, I would have seen this. Slimo is slow-mo. And I even said Torero correctly and then spelled it incorrectly. So that was very silly. Okay, let's look at the crossword here. So we had an interesting theme in that I found it to be fairly obscure. It took me some time the amount of time it took me to understand it was the amount of time it took me to fill out the revealer, I suppose. And if you're new to crossword themes, the revealer is the sort of thematically relevant clue that explains what's going on with all of the themed answers in the puzzle. So it's located here, as it was yesterday, actually, in its classical position as predicted by Lyell's law, Lyell being one of our viewers, which states that the revealer tends to be found in the roughly southeasterly part of the grid, in the across clues, almost always the across clues, almost always abutting the eastern border of the grid, and very frequently precisely 3 squares north of the southern border. And indeed, that is exactly where it was this time, and it lets us know that we are splitting our second elements. I mean, it's very clever because this one really relies on knowledge rather than wordplay. So many themes, well, the split second is a bit of wordplay, but understanding why these are all split seconds requires knowledge. And I suppose that's why it didn't occur to me early on. I wasn't really thinking about it that way. I was trying to find ways that there was some wordplay that linked these or something like that. So this was very clever and very subtle, I suppose. Definitely not as so. Yesterday, I mentioned that would be a good puzzle for perhaps a beginner to solve. This one maybe slightly less so, just because it deals with things with slightly more obscure knowledge, I suppose. And was, I think, a slightly tougher puzzle in general. But let me know if you felt the same way. You never know. Maybe you didn't. Anyway, very clever, very clever theme from Alex Eaton Solners. This is a great example of something that you can imagine a crossword constructor really racking their brain to come up with new themes at this point after decades and decades of the New York Times crossword. And so well done to him for thinking of this particular idea and executing it. And with that, let's discuss a few clues from yesterday's crossword. We actually had a fair amount of etymology in these comments, in fact. So Alan Aiton is kicking that off, starting us on this etymological bent with a comment reading, fun fact, the reason it's goose to geese but not moose to meese is that moose isn't a Germanic word. Almost all words that inflect irregularly in that way, such as ride to road, mouse to mice, are Germanic in origin, and they use the original system English had for inflection that later got superseded by the current, more widespread system. Moose came from an Eastern Algonquin language's word for the animal that meant it strips, that English adopted with the same plural rule as sheep or deer or fish. Very interesting. Thank you for that explanation. It makes perfect sense. I mean, the Germanic origins of English obviously explain so much about how the language works, or how parts of it work anyway. Actually, and speaking of German, in fact, RG says some bit of German pedantry. Cologne is actually not spelled Koln, it's K-O with an umlaut, L-N. If you want to omit the umlaut, that is perhaps for the purposes of a crossword, it should be Koeln, as umlauts are spelled out as A with an umlaut is A-E, U with an umlaut is U-E, and O with an umlaut is O-E. Additionally confusing because in the crossword clue, they do use the U with an umlaut in München. Concerning pronunciation, as far as I know, there is no English equivalent of the O with an umlaut sound. The closest you get is with a short E in words like her. Locals also call the city Kola, K-O with an umlaut L-L-E, or Kola, as rhyming with Hola, German for hell. Despite that, I think it's quite worth a visit. Thank you. I'm sure that was a nightmare for you to listen to me read back due to all of the over-explanation I had to do in order to communicate the visual symbols onto the screen, and also my non-existent German pronunciation. And I think the reason they used the umlaut in the clue and not in the grid is because the clues are sort of just ordinary language typed out, whereas the grid is a bit more constrained in terms of what goes into it. And on that note, Garbaz says in a reply, I think there might be a general rule in the New York Times crossword that all kinds of diacritics, umlauts, etc. are simply omitted or reduced to the closest letter existing in the English orthography instead of applying any transcription that exists in the native language. I do think that's true. And then Garbaz said, however, I do agree that writing Koln does look strange to my German eye as well. Yes, that's fair enough. And I do think that is true of the New York Times crossword. It occurs to me, I've never tried to solve a crossword in another language that is more reliant on diacritical marks, accents, and things. I wonder what the convention is there. I suppose you must need to use the accent mark. So does that then mean, say in French, if you had an E with an accent, I don't know, accent aigu or something, in the cell, would you then not be able to cross it with a word that uses an E without such an accent? I suppose not. I don't know. I'm sure there are viewers who solve crosswords in other languages, or at least I suspect as much. Let me know. I'm curious about that. Anyway, let's move on. And again, speaking of etymology, Joe Zichterman says, it's the etymology minute with Joe. I wanted to look up 2 words from today's puzzle, one because of its recent and frequent usage in the crossword, the other because I thought it was funny. A but, which is indeed a very common word in the crossword, is a word with mostly French origin from the Proto-Indo-European word bau, B-H-A-U, as a prefix meaning to strike. That formed the French word bouter, B-O-U-T-E-R, to strike or push, and with the a prefix became abouter, to touch with the end. Its root word is also where we seem to get words like to butt, as in to headbutt, to strike with the head, beat, and button. Very interesting. Thank you, Joe. And Joe also points out dank is perhaps, which was used in the context of dank memes yesterday, is perhaps related to the Germanic word damp, but was used as often as the 14th century to mean softened with moisture. Around the 1980s, Americans began using dank to mean excellent, usually talking about marijuana, perhaps denoting its scent and moisture content. It appeared in 2013 on online message boards like Reddit and 4chan, originally intended, it seems, to mock meme culture. Since then, it's been embraced somewhat ironically, allowing the phrase dank memes we saw in the puzzle today. Well, look at that. Thank you, Joe, for those 2 bits of etymology. Very interesting. And actually, I don't think there were any direct corrections from yesterday, unless you consider the German bit a correction. But thank you to everyone who wrote in. Apologies if I missed any other comments. And I think that's it for today's video. Hope you enjoyed the puzzle, the solve, and the etymology lessons. I certainly did. And I'll be back tomorrow for the Wednesday puzzle. Could be a slight step up in difficulty for tomorrow. And I suppose that's it. So please do join me for that Wednesday crossword. But until that point, have an excellent remainder of your Tuesday. Take care.